Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So today it's going to be a little bit different for me. I'm actually going to do more of a reaction or kind of like discussion type video. Today, Riot released their quick gameplay thoughts and it's got some very significant changes that I think will change the meta and the game itself quite a bit. So I think I kind of need to talk about it. It is a little unfortunate that they post this through like 2 days or one day after I make my tier list video, because I feel like a lot of the champs are going to get shuffled around. Although my thoughts on the champions will probably remain the same, it's just they're going to get moved around basically. So let's talk about it. And patch 12.10 will be introducing some changes to increase the durability on every champion in the roster to reduce the overall amount of damage in League. We're looking to accomplish this by increasing the following stats: base HP, HP per level, armor per level, MR per level. So this is interesting. I think everyone kind of agrees that there is overall like too much damage in League. To be honest though, I'm not sure if overall is the right word. I feel like the amount of damage in League is too much in terms of like tanks, supports, hidden items and hidden runes and stuff. So for example, there's a lot of this extra damage that comes from sources that isn't someone you'd expect. For example, I think if you get full comboed by like a Zed or something, the damage, maybe it is too much, but it's somewhat expected. You can understand that, he had to hit skill shots and stuff for it. And then on the other hand, there's all this invisible damage, so damage that comes from items, for example, like the loot and splash. There's things in your runes before like Scorch, electrocute, comet, there's lots of all these things here. Then on top of that, we have some items, I guess like Sunfire, we have Imperial Mandate, there's a lot of items and runes and stuff that is more like invisible. It's not so obvious that they're dealing damage. And it actually leads to some pretty ridiculous situations where you have stuff like Leona 100 to zeroing people. I was actually watching Claire's stream recently, and I think he was fighting like a LeBlanc and Nami at like level 11 or something, and then Nami actually did more damage to LeBlanc. Than LeBlanc. That was pretty crazy to me. So in my opinion, it's not so much that there's too much overall damage in League. Rather, there are some places in League where the damage is too high and it really hurts the clarity. So this increase in durability also necessitates some adjustments to the surrounding systems of the Rift to make sure they are correctly tuned relative to the increased durability. These include nerfs to sustain, Buster Baron turrets, and mana. Now, before we dive deeper into what to expect, look at how we got here. Okay, fair enough. Why more durability? Too much damage in League. While tons of damage can be fun and exciting, we believe that increasing champions' defensive stats will be beneficial for letting players showcase their skill by giving them more opportunity to counterplay and to live out their high moments. I feel like this is just like a personal preference. I don't think this is really a fact, and I feel like they've kind of stated it as so, or at least they believe it to be so. But I don't really think this is the case. I think there are lots of situations where that counterplay exists in a very small amount of time. If you think the famous Faker Zed versus Zed clip, I think that is something where, because of how knife's edge it was, that made it so intense. I think if this sort of play was expanded, if it took longer, it wouldn't be quite as epic as it was. So I don't agree with this as a whole, like in a principle for them just like laying a blanket rule. But I can see, I guess, where they're coming from. Before talking about the changes to cells, we want to reassure you that we aren't trying to create a meta where there are no kills by 15 minutes into the game. They like the current state. So some pros of lower survivability include a sizable amount of players enjoy high-kill games. I think that's very true. Leads to more exciting parameters, also very true. Rewards good play with kills, which is much more satisfying than just forcing someone to recall. Yeah, I would say so. That said, lower survivability also has downsides which outweigh these positives. Lower survivability leads to game states where squishy carries and supports in particular struggle to have an impact in the game due to being one-shot with low counterplay in too many situations. In my opinion, this is a little wrong. Yes, sort of. I think it's actually sort of rare that until someone gets fed, that they can like really fed, that they can actually 100 to 0 you. I think the problem is because there is so much ambient damage in the game, so much extra damage from these sources, that it's very rare. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but it's very rare that you actually start and play a team fight out while being full HP. So I think what happens a lot is, for example, let's say your verse a Zed that's like 2-0 or something. It might be that this Zed can kill you 100 to 0 from, say, 70% HP if they hit all their things and stuff, right? But they can't kill you from 100% HP. But the problem is that just while you're playing the team fight, there is so much just shit that hits you, basically. We've got like Loot and Splash, some like random like Leona ults you. There's like a lot of this extra damage that actually adds up quite a bit to where it might be that despite this Zed not having touched you yet, the main threat on the team you've actually gotten to 50% health and then you died. So in my opinion, it's not so much that the burst damage is so high with low counterplay. It's more that rather than it being the case of, okay, Zed is the highest threat to me, I need to play and position around him, there are now like 5 threats to think about. I've got to think about what their support's going to do to me. I've got to think about their jungler. And it's not just like, if you make a mistake, you get CC'd and your damage output is low. It's like if you take damage from these people, it might be that suddenly you're too low to actually play the team fight out at all. And I think that's quite frustrating because a lot of these champions in return don't have much of an investment. So I'm going to keep using Leona as an example because I really hate this champion. If Leona goes in, she's probably the tankiest champ in the game despite building no tank stat, From Aftershock and from her abilities, she just ends up super, super tanky, can chunk you out, and oftentimes can get away with like what might not be that great an engage. But on the other side, you make a slight mistake, and you take a lot of damage for it. So I'm not sure I totally agree with this. I think I agree with kind of the outcome. Like I agree that like squishy carries and supports can struggle, but I don't think it's for the reason that they're kind of saying here. On live, combat can sometimes be overly rewarding when high-threat champions only need to use a portion of their kit to secure a kill. Ideally, players should have to play around their champion's key skill test to hit those satisfying combos. That triple shuriken, yeah, I can agree. I don't know how often this actually happens, though. I feel like, again, like I was saying before, it's more just because you get chunked so much from other stuff. And I think also the defensive items are somewhat lacking in the game at the moment. I think a lot of the time, to actually build defensive items, you have to give up a lot of offensive power. And I really think this should be more of an item rework rather than just across the board damage. But let's just keep reading. Long term, I think poor skill tests make playing your favorite champions a lot satisfying. Notice with lowest survivability, it creates abrupt and confusing team fights and skirmishes when champions die so quickly. Yes, agree, but I definitely think this is another case of just every champion being an assassin. Like, I don't have a problem with assassins killing me. The bigger problem for me is just the fact that Leona is like the strongest champ in the game. And it's not just Leona, like all supports can pretty much 100 to 0, not 100 to 0, but maybe like 70 to 0 squishy carries. And I think that's a really big problem. It used to be that if someone was a tank, they would bring significant amounts of survivability and CC, but they were there to set up damage dealers. This was more kind of the case in like season 5, maybe season 6, before like all these kind of extra damage sources started coming into the game with like runes and items and stuff like that. Limit the opportunities, have to make smart decisions, showcase their skills, and ultimately aren't living up to the epic Clash of Legends fantasy teamfights should be delivering on. Since teamfights are one of the most enjoyable parts of the league, okay, whatever. So what to expect? We still think League is at its best with fast-paced, high-intensity combat, but now that it's gone too far in the direction, we need to rein it back a bit. We don't think any particular champions, items, or systems are out of line. Not sure I agree with that. I feel like classes of champions are very out of line. I think tanks deal way too much damage. I also think supports deal a lot of damage, and I think runes as a whole do more invisible damage, sort of. Maybe a bit too much. Which is why we're increasing durability across the board, rather than removing or toning down specific offensive sources. Okay, I'm interested to see where they go with this. The TLDR of what you can expect in games. Players will feel that their champions are dealing and taking more damage. I'm quite interested in this. Champions are dealing more damage, because from what I've seen of the changes so far, there's nothing that actually indicates this. So I'm going to come back to this. Taking less damage, first champions must commit more resources or be further ahead to get kills. Bigger winners of opportunity for counterplay. Skirmish and team fights last long. I think as goals, these sound really good, but I'm not sure this is actually going to come out this way. Particularly the dealing more damage. I'm very curious to see what they have in mind for this. Not the only thing we'll be adjusting. Increasing overall durability has a lot of knock-on effects. Sustain becomes more powerful in preventing champions from reaching burst thresholds. So we're reducing sustain across the board. Very good idea. When damages or when tanky stats kind of get added into the game, it makes these like more extended sustain or healing champions very difficult to deal with. Other side effects we're looking at include map elements doing less damage. Wait, map elements doing less damage? I feel like they should do more. Champions running out of mana more. Oh, I see. So they're trying to fix these things. Okay, yeah, I can agree with that. So yeah, they should make these do more damage. Champions running out of mana more frequently. It's getting champions staying alive more often to reach their win conditions. Proactively adjusted some of them. Burst damage dealers will be affected. They should be at 100 to 0 with their full kit. Okay, I mean that's good. These champions are extremely ahead than we think is reasonable. Yeah, I mean I don't see how that's any different from how it is now. I guess maybe. Yeah, okay. I guess maybe increasing the window for counterplay is good, but I think for the most part this is true. Like I think if you fall behind, burst champions can definitely kill you without their full kit. But I think, you know, if you're both even, like most of the time they do need to commit their whole kit to kill you. Then we think it's reasonable for them to kill champions only part of their kit, only because they've passed their core skill test many times, etc., etc. Okay, so let's look at the changes specifically because there's a whole list here in a Reddit comment. So base HP, health growth, armor, and MR growth. So at level 18, you get 300 extra HP, 20 armor, and 16 more MR. So that's pretty crazy. Every champion is getting quite a lot more durability. And also, just like armor and MR definitely feels like obviously it makes like every champion tankier, but it also rewards further people that are already building HP, and it also counters people that are building either armor pen or magic pen. So I could see these champions definitely struggling from getting like a lot of changes lopped on top of them here. Heals and shields. All heals and shields reduced by 10%, or shields reduced by 10%. Okay. Grievous wounds less effective. Surprising. I don't really know if I agree with that, but I guess it's because they're so here, yeah, I guess it's just because they're nerfing like all the healing, basically all the Omnivamp going down. I think these are good proactive changes. Other item nerfs: Blighting Jewel pen down, Void Staff pen down, Last Whisper pen down, Armor pen down on these as well. Sunfire damage down, I think that's good. Moonstone Renewer, okay, this is definitely a good change before healing and shielding gets out of control. Demonic Embrace burn is down. Item mana, okay. So first off, I think this might not be enough. And I think, especially when they're doing this as well, I think you have champions that are already very strong in like a slow scaling meta. Champions like Sona, for example. Also some of the like mid lane ones like Karma mid, I think. These are already champions that are like really ridiculous in terms of like how little skill they need comparatively to like the enemy team in order to punish them. And I think that creates really, really poor gameplay. So I think they'll definitely need to take a look at those champions as a whole, because I think they already benefited a lot from the Season 12 changes, and they're about to benefit even more. And I think also, if it does swing that far that way, I think it'll actually end up in a worse spot, like the meta, than it is right now. I mean, I actually like the meta right now, but I think if it goes all the way that way and they don't like fix it fairly soon, you have champions like Sona just like taking over the game without having to do much proactively. And I think that'll be very, very frustrating against. Now, it's weird to me because they say in here that you should feel like your champions are dealing less damage, and then they have pen nerfs across the board and damage nerfs across the board, despite making people tankier. And they're thinking that I guess the heals and shields make up for this, and I don't think it does. I think this is not only is everyone getting tankier, but I really don't think this is the case. I think you will also feel like your champions are dealing less damage. So I'm very surprised by the fact they said that. Like I said, I think this is it's a good goal, but does it actually reflect in their changes? Like, no, I don't really think so. I'm actually surprised that they didn't increase the pen, because I feel like percent pen should help you deal with these tanks. And it's, if anything, flat pen is being nerfed by adding armor and MR. This is really weird to me. Like, not only are squishies tankier, but they're also making existing tankier champs even tankier, despite giving them like a bunch of free stats already. Super weird to me. I don't like this. I like the rest of it, but I'm not sure I like this, to be honest. More mana, I mean, that makes sense. Rune percent resistance is reduced. Yeah, I can agree with that. Baron damage up, max AD up. Okay, so Baron's just harder to take. Turret, again, this is another thing that sort of incentivizes like scaling. Like, if the Baron's more difficult to take, it makes it so you need to get even a bigger lead or kill more people to actually end the game before these scaling champions like really take over. Turret damage increased. Okay, so this just makes it harder for you guys to like tank towers forever. So overall, I'm like hopeful for the changes. I'm hopeful for what the changes will eventually be. But I don't know. I like some of this. I sort of like this part here. Obviously, champions need to be adjusted. Like, a lot of the burst mages and burst assassins, I think, will definitely need some changes. I like this. I don't really like the way they've gone about it, though. Oh, no, I like general durability, but I also feel like it should have been more specific to the systems that are causing those problems. And I like all the healing nerfs. I think a lot of people hate that. Really kind of confused by the item nerfs, because it feels like it's the exact opposite of what they're saying should happen. So I don't really like that. And also, as a whole, I'm just like cautiously optimistic about it. So there are things I like about it. It's going to make the meta, it's definitely going to favor some of the more like scaling, like extended trade team fighters. So champions like Cassiopeia mid, for example. Like that's one of my favorite champions, so obviously I'm very happy about that. But on the other hand, I feel like it's making champions that I also enjoy, like LeBlanc, a lot weaker. So that's like more of a personal thing. But it's like, do I actually think this makes the game more fun? And do I think it makes the game more balanced? Honestly, I don't really think so. Like, I think in terms of balance, it's more like a rearranging of strength. It's going to make these champions that perhaps were out of the limelight for a while brought up, and it's going to make these champions that were in the limelight for a while brought down. But does it actually balance things across the board? Like, no, I don't really think so. It's just changed what is valuable within the game. Before, when burst damage was very valuable and like extended fights were not, now it's going to be the opposite. So I think you're going to see more like tank, extended fighting champion dominance, perhaps ADCs being a bit better. And it's sort of weird to me. I feel like they could have balanced the game out a lot more by taking away some of the just like random damage in the game. And yeah, it's sort of, I just think, I guess they're good changes. I don't think they're the best changes. And something that I'm actually kind of interested about is a while ago, 4 months ago, they said they did internal playtesting with a total of 20% damage healing and shielding reduction. And they said that tanks became very overpowered. Burst mages became borderline useless. AD assassins had to build full glass cannon, and they basically said this leads us to believe there's probably a better game out there to shoot for, but there could be a lot of ways it could go really badly. And to be honest, I don't know like how this would convert. For example, like are these changes relatively equivalent to what they've got here? Like I'm not really sure, but I do think increasing all the durability without increasing damage in the right places, or alternatively, keeping durability the same but reducing damage in other places, I'm not sure it makes the game more balanced. Like I said, I think it just shifts the power around rather than actually, I think there's a way they could have done it where they could have brought the extended champions up a bit by making it so either specific systems are changed or so like certain champions are nerfed. In my opinion, it requires a bit more fine tuning because I think in season 12 already, like for a long time, scaling champions were pretty useless in solo queue. But in season 12, they were made a lot better, so it was already like a step in the right direction. And now they're like fundamentally changing things up again. Definitely feels like more of a preseason sort of thing, and it's going to feel like that, and the meta will change quite a bit. But finally, is it actually fun for the game? I think it's just subjective. I don't think it's very easy to say this is objectively better for the game. I guess we'll have to see it play out. I don't know, I'm just like cautiously optimistic about the whole thing. I think Riot is normally pretty good about making quick changes, but they're not really that great about making the best changes. So like I think it's true. They will respond to this patch like pretty quickly with some changes, but I think it's very, very likely that you see some champions kind of left in the gutter for a long time, and also some champions left absurdly OP for a long time. If you look at like the current meta, we've had Ari be like one of the best champs in the game for like 3 months straight, and it's only just now that they're nerfing her when she's been very obviously out of line. On the other hand, like sometimes they do nerf things pretty quick, so we just kind of have to see. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. I'd be interested to think or to hear what you guys think about it, because I think it's definitely more of like I think like damage foresight should definitely be part of the game. And I just think right now it's just too much that the damage foresight is from so many different areas. Like you have to think about so many different champions rather than just the one threat to yourself. And that's why I think it's particularly difficult for lower elo players. But anyway, guys, let me know what you kind of think about it. And let me know if these videos are kind of like, it's like, I don't know, if you enjoy them, if it's good second monitor content, basically. But yeah, go ahead and like and subscribe, guys, and I'll see you next time.